If you are a sports podcaster, I have good news for you. In today's conversation, I'll be sharing with you the law of success for sports podcasters. Let me first give you an overview before I get into the nitty gritty. You have to understand that when it comes to sports in general, you have a very competitive field. Okay, and I'm not just talking about in the states or in North America, but even in Europe. Globally, podcasting is a very competitive niche. You have thousands, literally thousands of sports podcasts available nowadays, either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Okay. So the thing is that you got to ask yourself, why am I starting a sports podcast in the first place? Is it because I am a sports enthusiast? Is it because I practice some kind of sports, or I just want to give general opinion about the sports itself, or maybe I love the celebrity aspect of sports. Anyway, you have to really have a clear idea about your motivation to actually start a sports podcast this year, or even grow your sports podcast. Okay, so starting a sports podcast can be an incredible opportunity for you. Okay, incredible opportunity in terms of, let's say, monetary opportunities. Right, you are able to make money. You're able to meet the athletes, also to meet celebrities. You're also able to invite like wonderful guests, from coaches all the way to journalists and so on and so forth. So that's very important. Now you have to understand, when it comes to sports podcasting in this day and age, you have the importance of the internet. Nowadays, everything is digital. Okay, I mean, ESPN back in the days was only available through cable or just other formats. Nowadays, you can have ESPN and other sports channels virtually on YouTube, on Vimeo, on other platforms. So I want you to really understand that you have several ways now that audiences across the globe are basically consuming sports. But you got to also ask yourself, what kind of sports you want to talk about? Because sports is a very quote unquote vague topic. But what kind of sports specifically you want to talk about? Or do you just want to do a sports podcast about sports in general? So let me give you the laws of success for sports podcasters. You have to really ask yourself two things, okay? Number one, you have to be honest with yourself about what you like and what you are qualified to create content about. Let me repeat that. What do you like, and what are you qualified to create content about? Are you just if you just let's say you are a regular person like me, you're not a coach, you're not an athlete, but then in this case, you got to have solid knowledge about what you're talking about. You got to do research. You got to constantly stay on top of the game, literally. Okay, don't try to waste your listeners' time. Don't try to waste your partner's time. Don't try to waste actually even advertisers' time. Your sports podcast is not going to grow if you're not adding value. See, when you start a sports podcast, you got to really ask yourself, how are you improving your listeners' lives? What kind of knowledge are you bringing to the table? What kind of insights? What kind of value are you bringing to the table? Okay, so that's very important. Before you think about creating a successful podcast, think about, be honest with yourself about what you like and what you are qualified to talk about. If you're not, you will fail and you will blame everyone else but yourself for stepping outside your lane, right? You have to really understand that you are your own success factor. So essence and content fit cannot be ignored or faked. Okay, the essence and the content fit has to be maintained at all times. The second thing I want you to think about is you have to prepare to spend a year figuring out number one. In other words, figuring out, being honest with yourself. Okay, because you will not listen to podcasters like me or others, and you'll spend a year trying to jam your square shaped content into your audience's triangle shaped ear holes. The thing is that you want to really be clear with your audience, be honest with them, but clear and honest with yourself too. See, clarity and honesty has to start with yourself before you actually convey whatever message you convey to your audience. One thing I want you to also think about is that you want to listen to actual podcast experts on strategy, but don't let any of them convince you they can make you successful. See, the thing is, if you're trying to be a sports podcaster, if you're trying to be a sport podcaster, you can try to listen to general advice. You can try to really listen to journalists like sports journalists. You can listen to coaches. You can listen to your friends. You can listen to family members, whatever. Okay. But the thing is, at the end of the day, nobody else can brew your essence for you. But the experienced one do have some clever ideas that are worth taking seriously. In other words, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but you're trying to see what kind of wheel you have and how to really shape that wheel according to your needs, according to your motivation, but also according to the needs of your target audience. For instance, if you're doing fantasy football, what are the needs of those fantasy football fans? I mean, those needs may be different from other sports. Okay, and again, when I'm talking about sports podcasting, I'm not just talking about quote unquote physical, real life sports. Okay, nowadays you have a lot of niches. You have a lot of opportunities when it comes to sports, and you have to understand that basically you even have e-games too. You have electronic games. You have digital games. So sports is not just something physical. You also have a fantasy sports. Okay, and another thing is, do not approach podcasting like sport podcasting as a hobby. Sport podcasting is not a hobby. Podcasting in general is not a hobby, especially in the current landscape. It is a very difficult endeavor. So you got to really take it seriously. As I said to you, you have literally millions of podcasts globally. In the sports field, you have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of podcasts globally in the sports category. Okay, so this is a very competitive field. I want you to really take seriously, and also you got to really have a long-term strategy just in case you make it. Like basically, whether that's an acquisition by a network, you know, pitching a series to Netflix or doing something else, creating a larger brand around the podcast, okay, is something that you can have a vision about. Even if it starts as some silly little thought that doesn't feel possible, it's always a good way to constantly remind yourself of the fact that anything can happen, even if you can't control everything. Anything can happen. You just never know. You just never know. Okay, so that's important to really to think about, especially if you are trying to contextualize your future success. If you're thinking about scalability. So when it comes to let me give you when it comes to the law of success for sports podcasters, let me give you a few steps here. I want you to really pay attention to this step by step. This will constitute your law of success. First of all, you want to define your niche. Define your niche, okay? Because again, like I said, sport podcasting is a very general, a very vague term, okay? Starting a sports podcast begins with defining your niche. Since sports is a vast topic, narrowing your focus to a specific sports team or aspect of sport that you are deeply knowledgeable about and enthusiastic about is really crucial. Why? Because this will help you differentiate yourself. This will help you distinguish yourself. This will really put you in a different category. Okay, that way you are able to be unique in the crowded podcasting arena and also attract a dedicated audience. And that's what you want. Okay, so to make your podcast SEO friendly, ensure that you have chosen a niche that's something people want to talk about, that something people are searching for. So before diving into the world of sports podcasting, you want to identify your niche, and you also want to understand that you are going to grow faster if you stick to that niche. I mean, either that niche or one primary niche or one primary and one secondary niche. Next, what you want to do is you want to research and plan. So this is an important law of success for sports podcasting. So once you have figured out the kind of sports you want to talk about, the kind of sport topic you want to talk about, you need to research and plan. Why should you research and plan? Because you want to see whether or not your idea will hold some kind of economic preeminence. In other words, whether people are really looking for it. So once your niche is established, immerse yourself in research and planning. Stay up to date with the latest news, trends, and developments in your chosen sports. This not only keeps you informed, but also provides you with valuable content ideas for your podcast episodes. Make use of SEO tools to identify relevant keywords and topics that are currently trending in your niche. That's going to help you big time. Okay. And you want to create a content calendar outlining the topics you plan to cover in each episodes. So this this actually ensures a consistent flow of engaging and relevant content for your listeners, especially if you are targeting a global listenership. Okay, that's important. Additionally, you want to consider reaching out to experts or influencers in the sports industry for potential guest appearances on your show. Collaborations like this can provide unique perspectives and attract new listeners while also enhancing your podcast SEO by connecting it to other authoritative sources. Next, you want to choose your format and equipment. So, the law of success for sports podcasters really revolve also around format, revolves around equipment, revolves around let's just say your gear in general. So your sports podcast format is actually very important. You got to really ask yourself what kind of format you have, right? Are you going to do a solo? Are you going to follow a solo format? Are you going to have, let's say, a group interview? Are you going to have let's say let's say a table session, for instance? Okay, are you going to do news and analysis, or do you prefer co-host and guest interviews to actually diversify viewpoints? So you want to experiment with different formats to discover what resonates best with your audience. So in terms of equipment, investing in high quality podcasting gear is actually essential for professional sounding audio, and that's what you want. If you want your sports podcast to go somewhere, you want to invest in that. I'm speaking about microphone, headphones, and also you want to have a quiet recording space. Okay, think about the recording space big time because it's going to influence the audio quality too. You want to invest in quality podcasting equipment so that you can ensure that your audio sounds professional and engaging. So don't forget the editing software too, though. I mean, this is kind of important. And you want to record and edit your episodes. So if you are trying to really, if you want to be a successful sports podcaster, think about recording and editing your episodes in a streamlined manner. So find a quiet and comfortable space to record. Ensure your equipment is functioning correctly, and start recording. Okay, so you want to speak clearly, engage your audience, and infuse your unique personality into each episode. That's going to help you big time. It's going to help you actually stand out big time. So after recording, use audio editing software to fine tune your episodes, eliminate any background noise, incorporate intro, outro music, and edit out mistakes or awkward pauses. So that's kind of important. If you are trying to stand out as a sports podcaster this year, you got to really also think about where to host your sports podcast. Because just having a sport podcast, just to put it out there, it's not going to help you. You got to really think about where to archive it, what kind of repository to really think about. Okay. And so you have a lot of places. You have Spotify, you have Google Podcasts, you have Apple Podcasts. Those are your primary podcast directories. Okay. The cool thing is that if you are able to have a reliable hosting platform, you can ensure that your episodes are easily accessible to your audience. Okay. And so when selecting a hosting platform, consider factors such as analytics, monetization options, and distribution ease. Analytics are really important in the sense that You want to see whether or not you're hitting your KPIs. Because otherwise, why would you get involved in the whole conversation, right? So you want to make sure that the whole journey is worth it for you. So now, so you have when it comes to hosting your sports podcast, of course you have the directories, but you also have the podcast hosting platforms. So when it comes to podcast hosting platforms, you have the likes of Libsyn, you have Podbean, you have Custos, you have Riverside, you have Acast, for instance. Make sure to optimize your podcast metadata, including titles, descriptions, and tags for better SEO visibility across these platforms. And when it comes to your sports podcast, just make sure that you have engaging content and format. If you want to keep your audience hooked, you got to have that engaging and compelling content across the board. So you want to plan your episodes in a way that flows naturally. Consider including segments like interviews with athletes, industry experts, or fellow podcasters. That's kind of cool too, to actually reach out to other podcasters. Again, you can increase your own visibility. Okay, so you can incorporate storytelling techniques, share personal anecdotes, and encourage audience interaction through social media platforms. And or you can also try live Q&A sessions. And consistency and regularity are going to be your friends. You want to be consistent, you want to be regular. You want to set a regular schedule for releasing episodes, and you want to stick to it. So whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, maintaining a consistent release pattern will help your audience anticipate and look forward to your content. And this will also demonstrate your commitment and professionalism as a podcaster. Another law of success for a sports podcaster is actually to promote and grow your podcast, your sports podcast. See, the whole thing is that when it comes to sports, I mean, sports is something people love in general. Sports is a very good niche that really lends itself to promotion naturally, but you still have to do a little bit of promotion. Otherwise, nobody's going to hear from you. The thing is that basically your sports podcast is not the only one. You have tons of sports podcasts. So for you to really, let's say, differentiate yourself, you have to promote it. Okay, you can do natural promotion on platforms such as Twitter, now called X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest. Okay, or you can also invest in paid ads. In other words, you can pay the likes of Facebook, YouTube, okay, to actually carry your podcast, your sports podcast. And finally, I want you to keep learning. So if you want to be a successful sports podcaster, you got to keep learning. You want to attend sports events, conferences, and industry gatherings to connect with like-minded individuals, athletes, journalists, and industry professionals. You want to collaborate with other podcasters or invite guest speakers to bring fresh perspectives and diverse voices to your show. And you need that. You need to really bring those voices from time to time. So building a strong network will not only enhance your podcast credibility, but also provide valuable insights into potential partnerships. Okay, especially when it comes to scaling your sports podcast in the long run. So, in conclusion to this conversation, I shared with you the law of success for sports podcasters. I give you the overview, the laws of success, the step by step that you need to follow this year. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.